Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this week's stream. I hope everybody's doing good today. So we're going to be turning up one of the blanks that we made last week. And I got to be honest, those blanks look really good. Those were some really good colors you guys picked. They just together go really well. So I'm excited about that. And I wanted to, before we even begin, I wanted to congratulate Jake on hitting 50,000 subscribers. I don't know if you guys... If anybody missed the Saturday morning cartoons today, but they were celebrating that, and that's a pretty huge milestone. I mean, honestly, I got to be honest. I think Jake deserves well over 100,000. So make sure to share Jake's channel with any friends. If you guys are in like turning clubs and all that kind of stuff, spread the word because they not only Jake but everybody that's on the team over there. They do a really good job. It's a really good community, and frankly, like I said, I mean, he deserves well over 50,000 subscribers, but, baby steps a little bit. They're at 50, so hopefully 50 more soon. So big shout out to them. I'm going to drop a link real quick. Let's see here. I think I got a link here. Yep. So if you aren't subscribed to his channel, you should be. If you like my stuff, you're going to like his stuff. So there's a link to that. So like I said, congratulations. Really good job. They do really good work over there. He's really kind of... I think the first time I met Jake was at... I think it was at Maker Central. We had talked a little bit before that, but that was the first time I met him. And I remember he was working on the... I don't know if anybody... Some of you guys probably remember... He kind of contacted me and was asking me some questions. He was working on that Wolverine on the toilet project. He wasted so much resin. I feel so bad. But it was a really cool project. And he said today, that was brought up on the Saturday morning cartoons. He was like, it's so funny. The projects that you think are just going to be like the most amazing things on the planet never seem to pan out. And then you can do a video on some silly technique or something like that and it gets all kinds of views, but I think that's the way YouTube works. But yeah, so it's been a while, and that was like I think maybe only like the second year of Maker Central that I went there. So anyway, congratulations, Jake. So let's head to the overhead view. Let's do this. Check these blanks out. You guys probably saw them on Instagram. Oh my God, like what? Those look great. Like I said, obviously all these colors on their own are pretty good, but man, when you put these together, woo-wee, those are looking pretty awesome, I think. So these are going to be going in the Pen Blank Club box. So what I'm going to turn today is a Knurl GT. I was kind of digging around in my Boxo blank or Boxo pen kits, and I found one of these. This has been sitting in there for a long time, actually. And they're pretty cool. Is it a click? I think it's like a click. I don't know. I'm a little bit suspect about the click mechanism on this one, but it's pretty cool. It's got knurling on the grip, so that's neat. It's got a little bit of knurling down here at the other end. So you kind of, let's see here. I don't even know how this thing goes together. I haven't done one of these for a long time. I'm guessing this goes in there. So you got a little bit of knurling on the end of the... kind of like on your like finial or whatever you want to call it, the back end. So it's pretty cool. I'm actually, while I'm sitting here, there's one part that just needs to be, well, I might actually just leave that off, but this little guy goes right here. So you can see what the grip section looks like on this guy. It's pretty cool. So I thought that would look pretty cool with this, and I like that it's a long blank. I didn't want to just do like, a Sierra or something like that where you're using a pretty short length. I wanted to kind of really get as much of the different colors as I could in the blank. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll be turning that up. I got a little bit of I don't know if it's a surprise. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I got a side project. One thing that I don't do because I have to get the blanks ready ahead of time. I never show you guys gluing in the tubes. And so I thought I'd do one. I was working on, I went back and did a 1%, blanks with my pigments with 1% in them. I wanted to kind of see what the difference was, especially with the robin egg, coral, and watermelon. and just kind of see if there was any difference in the like saturation. So when I say saturation, what that is like how much color is in there. If you put too little in, you start kind of diminishing the amount of like color that's coming out, which, let me show you an example. I got a really easy one. Let's see, this one. So if you look at the difference here, you know, one of these is kind of a little bit less saturated. You know, it's lighter color, whereas this one's much like darker, richer, kind of more saturated kind of color. And so that was another thing that I wanted to kind of look at, doing a couple of tests, is to look at what, how much, you know, because in the robin egg, watermelon, and coral, we did the test where I turned the 0.5%, you know, adding 0.5% of the pigment in, and all we were doing was just seeing, you know, is this going to cover up the tube, which frankly it does a pretty good job at 0.5%, but I would recommend if you're going to do a kit pen, I would definitely go to 1%. And actually, after looking at these results, I think I would just blanket statement across the board. I would probably just go with 2% on, regardless of what color it is. That will guarantee you that you're going to get full saturation. What I noticed, let's go back over to this overhead. So these were the first ones. There's not a lot of difference at all. I don't know if there's really barely any difference in like the saturation amount between these two. This one was the first one. This is the 1%, so 0.5 and 1. And there's not really a lot of difference in the color or anything like that. But if you get it at the right angle and you're really kind of looking closely, there is a little bit of, you can kind of see through a little bit. It's not going to be really perceptible, but I think if you go up to 2%, you're not going to see anything. It's going to be a nice solid color. What's happening is there seems to be a little bit of light transmission through. And the only other thing is this one's thicker. You know, I didn't get them exactly perfect. This one's a little fatter in the middle, where this one's thinner. And that's the thing is depending on how thin you go, I would just probably put 2% in if you're doing a kit pen and trying to cover the tubes, and just move on, you know. I don't think you really need to do that with a lot of other things, you know, but if you so this is the old one, and you can definitely see through. This is coral. You can see through on the 0.5%. There's just little, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's hard to pick up. Try and get an angle. So again, this one's the old one. This one's the newer one, I think. And there's just, it just doesn't look even. It's like, I don't know. Basically what I'm seeing is I can see through and see the glue splotches, basically. Again, it's not super noticeable, but even in the 1%, I can see some little variations going on, which means that light is going through, and I think I'm seeing glue splotches. It shouldn't be that like the pigment itself is like, I mixed it well, you know, it's not the pigment, it's that you're seeing through and seeing those glue splotches. So I think 2% is where you want to go. And I can definitely see, again, this is the old one, this is the new one. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of like there's like weirdness going on, and it's because you can just barely see the glue splotches. You know, you can't see the tube. There's no brass or anything like that showing. It's just thin enough where you're kind of like, there's some weirdness going on. So I think that's probably the answer. And I actually kind of messed up because I thought that 1% was pretty good, and then I gave it another look a little closer. And so in the email newsletter, I was like, 1% is probably good, but I'm going to retract that statement, and I'm just going to say 2% should get you good across the board with these things. And like I said, I don't know if how this compares my pigment to other pigment brands. They're all kind of different. So, you know, some may be a little bit more, like there may be more, I don't know if you can get more pigment in, you know, so 1% with mine versus like Divine Pigments may be different. I don't know. You'll have to do some testing of your own with other brands. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll up and see. Chad Schimmel's in the house. What's up, man? Well, I wanted to check and see if the packages made it there. Let's see here. I don't see any questions. I saw one question. David Bingham. Last week when you were passing. Oh, you passed through, huh? Cool. That's awesome. Oh, in Washington. Nice. Well, that's cool. He's on to his next journey. That's fun. Let's see. Any other? Yeah, you can kind of see it just, and like, if I just hold these things like at arm's length, it's one of those things. It's like a 10-foot paint job. Like, you can't see anything, like, for the most part, but I think if you want to just have a nice, even, everything's good to go, you got the most saturation, 2% is probably where I would just go. You don't have to think about it. You know, in some of the, so one thing that one like caveat that I want to kind of explain, I've used less than 2% when we've done, you know, worked with these pigments. And the thing is, when you mix it with other colors that may be more opaque, let's say, I don't think you're going to see any of this stuff. You know, if there's a bunch of colors, some of which are darker than others, and you got a lot of, you know, mica powders and different things going on that most of them are covering it up, I don't think you're going to see anything. I think also if you painted the tubes, probably would see less of this stuff because there's not as much like light bouncing back, especially like with a black tube. It would probably cover a lot of this up. But just to be safe, 2% is you're gonna be good to go. No questions asked, I think. With the 5 that I've released so far, if I released a yellow, I would probably be like, you need to put like 30% in there. Yellow is just a pain. So let's see here. I think that's about it. So what I want to do, we're going to head over to the lathe area. And like I said, I'm going to show you how I glue in tubes. It's not like my way is like better necessarily than anything else. I have gotten really good results. I used to do epoxy, 5-minute epoxy for many years. And the one thing that I do want to say is the way that I do it, I use CA glue, and I would not recommend this on wood blanks. Do not use CA glue to glue in like just normal wood. I would even maybe some stabilized woods, maybe a little bit kind of, I don't know. Because if it's just like raw wood, wood has moisture in it, and the minute that the moisture hits the CA glue, it's gonna set up. So you're not, what ends up happening is you get half a tube in and it's stuck there and you're like, oh man. So don't do this with wood tubes or with wood blanks. This is for resin blanks. And I ended up switching this because I was getting problems. I got a few blowouts, and what I ended up seeing was like there was just no glue coverage on certain parts. So I decided to kind of go back to the drawing board and kind of try some different things. So this is kind of very specific to, you know, I still do it with hybrids usually, but it's very dry here also. So if there's like surface moisture and I don't know, you can get into kind of crazy stuff with the CA. You got to be a little bit careful, but generally for resin blanks, this is the way I do all of them. Let's see, David has a question. Got the pigments. Can I store them? Yeah, yeah, they should be okay. They're not that, like temperature is not going to like wreck them in like a month or anything like that. They should have a really good shelf life. I mean, it's like any other pigment for the most part. If you could, you know, like I would recommend if you can store it at like room temperature, the life of it is going to be a little longer. It may not like dry out kind of like sometimes these, and I don't know, I haven't had these for, you know, an entire summer at this point, but I mean, I leave mine in my shop. They're all down here and up here. I haven't stored any pigments in a fridge or anything like that ever. And I've never really had any issues with any of them. The only ones that I would say I have issues with sometimes, the fluorescents from Alumilite, man, and it doesn't even matter about temperature. Like these things dry out and they get hard, and those ones suck. Like if you don't need to store, like buy them and like I would recommend buying the fluorescents from Alumilite, and I'm talking about the liquid, they're like liquid pigment stuff, the dyes. I would buy them when you need them. Don't be like, oh, you know what I should hold on in my shelf is these fluorescents. Get them when you need them, because otherwise they can kind of dry up. Now, if they do dry up, you can add a little bit of the Part A, if you're using Alumilite clear, whatever the resin part is, not hardener, put the resin part in. So even if you're using epoxies or whatever, you can add a little bit of that and kind of try to jam a stick in there and stir it up, and that will like revive it. It's not like it's dead. That's the other thing. I mean, as far as I understand, pigments are dry things anyway, so if it dries out, just add some more like some sort of a liquid of some sort. So I don't think anything's ever going to be to the point where it's like bad or something like that. It may kind of dry out a little bit. You may need to add a little bit of that resin. So with Alumilite Clear Slow, the resin would be well, that doesn't have a sticker. The part A, does it say resin? I know that Alumilite Clear, the part A is resin. Oftentimes they tell you which one's like resin and which one's hardener. Typically your hardeners tend to be the ones that like crust up and stuff like that with epoxies, and some brands, like it doesn't, part A isn't always resin, the resin part. So that's why I just say, read the label of whatever whatever resin it is. And in epoxies, if it's a 2-to-1 ratio, generally the resin is going to be the bigger jug also. So just a couple things. It's the one that's, I don't know, it doesn't ever like go bad, it seems like. So you can add a little bit of that, because that, like, realistically, I think most of these liquid pigments have some sort of a similar type of like a resin in them as their liquid stuff. But like, nothing's gonna happen if you leave them in the garage. So to answer your question, it'll be fine if you don't want to like bring them in or do anything like that. It shouldn't affect them really. It may make them a little bit thinner, viscosity. That's about it. My shop doesn't usually get to like 100, but I mean, in the summer, in the middle of the summer, it'll get up to like 90. And I don't do anything special with them. So, all right, let's go over to the lathe, and like I said, so just, I'm going to give you kind of a step-by-step real quick before I even go over there, just in case when I get into it, I'm going to kind of just do it. I'll explain what I'm doing, but I want to explain the steps real quick here, and then you can kind of watch and I'll re-explain them. So what I do is I use the Starbond's thick gap filling, and that's pretty much what I'm using. That's like the thing that I'm using. That's what, for the most part, that's the thing. So what I do is I spread that and I wipe it all over, like rub it in to every part of the tube just to make sure everything's covered on it. Set that aside, and then I pick up the blank, and I actually also add, this is something that I think helps, and I think is critical in certain circumstances. I don't know how critical. I don't know that you really need to do this in like for one of these, just a regular resin blank. Probably don't need to do this, but there could be a couple of advantages. So I take the super fast thin from Starbond and I douse the inside of the blank itself with that. Then I pick up the tube and do, like keep on going, put it in there. And then I just set them aside. I don't use accelerator usually, unless I need to hurry up and turn the thing like the same day, which I don't recommend if you don't have to. It works, but you're better off letting the glue fully dry. Like overnight, it's going to be, like as hard and strength-wise, it's going to be the best. So the big thing with the thin CA glue, the reason why that can be crucial, and I feel like that is a crucial thing that nobody else does. And the reason being, I'm trying to find some examples here. So, yeah, this is a good one. I don't know. I'm just going to bring a couple like example blanks. In the past, when I was really heavily doing Dunkin' Junk, where we had some crazy materials that we were putting in things. Actually, I got a number of examples here real quick. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few examples of things that I think that the thin CA glue really helps with. Okay, so I got these are like aluminum weird, I think they're like Mexican party favors. I forget what they were, but they're like aluminum foil stuff. Okay, I know this isn't a pen blank, but we did make pen blanks with it. And so when you're putting stuff that, you know, like doing the Dunkin' junk thing where you're putting a material in that isn't, like the bond between the resin and that material is not particularly great. Aluminum honeycomb would be a perfect example. Even like pine cones, you got to be a little careful with the pine cones because they can, a lot of times there's some moisture in them. These were those epoxy floor chips. I don't know how, this could fall into this category. These are like pistachios or something like that, something crazy. These things were like, I don't think we made a pen out of these because they're like HDPE basically. But, you know, things like that. Aluminum honeycomb, we did some like snake skin. I don't know if I made pen blanks out of that, but that type of thing where you're combining materials where the resin really doesn't want to stick to that very well. What I find is you're going to drill out the center, right? And the logic behind the super fast thin, that stuff tends to like creep into cracks and glue them together basically. And so if you've drilled out a blank where the material is not super awesome, like I said, I think the best example is aluminum honeycomb. That one is just, it's just not a great bond, you know, like regardless of what you use, even the 3D printed stuff. You've got resin bonding to something where it may not be the greatest bond in the planet. And I would say more so like if you're using like PLA, 3D printed things. So my logic is if you douse the inside of the blank with a bunch of this super fast thin stuff, it's going to creep into any cracks where there might not be a good bond between the resin and the material and hopefully glue it together, like from the inside out. A lot of times once you've got it, you know, on the lathe, we tend to, you know, we use that super fast thin to kind of douse the outsides. But if you can do it from the inside, that seems to make even more sense to me. And so that's why I use that super fast thin. It's more so for blanks where, like I said, you've got this material in there that the resin doesn't really want to stick to in the first place very well. And you're just adding like a little bit of support on the inside, hopefully. And then but the main glue that I'm using is that thick gap filling stuff. Okay. So that's my idea. And frankly, I think that is the reason why I've gotten through a lot of materials that nobody on their right mind should have been turning on a lathe making a pen out of. I think it's because I kind of glued it together. Now, obviously, I usually am a little bit more careful when I'm turning things like that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that just blow up in your face no matter how careful you are. But I think that glue kind of helps. So the super fast thin can be helpful. Now, if you're just making a normal resin blank, there should be no cracks or anything like that. So that logic kind of goes out the window. I still do it though. I just kind of quickly douse it. And I guess the only advantage that using the super fast thin stuff on the inside could offer you is you are coating, hopefully, you know, you may not get like I don't sit there and like make sure that every single inch of the inside is totally covered. I just kind of have one of those longer tips and just kind of squirt it around. But at least you're getting some glue on both surfaces. That's usually recommended when you're gluing things together. So that's why I still do it, even with resin, just normal resin blanks. The other thing is the super fast thin is going to set up and lock things in quicker. So I don't know that that's a good reason to use it and do double duty on you know, just a normal resin blank. But I still do it because I don't ever have problems. So that's my my thing. So let me see and make sure I don't miss any questions here. It's cold today. We were talking about temperatures I see in the chat. So it was like, I don't know, 85 or something yesterday. It's like 60 degrees today. It's cold. Like I was wearing shorts. I had to go run some errands and I'm like putting pants on. It's not even warm. All right. So let's see. So we're going to go and glue a blank. So here's my steps. And if Chad's still in the chat, because it only takes 2 seconds, if I'm just doing a brass tube, I'm going to scuff it. All right. I totally agree that it's not necessary because if I have a painted tube, I don't scuff that and I have no problems. Okay. So I don't know that it's necessary. However, for 5 seconds of my time, I don't think anybody can argue if you scuff whatever surface up, it's gonna give you a better bond, because when you're using CA glue or if you're doing resin casting stuff, it's a mechanical bond, which means it needs to grab onto something. It's not like a chemical bond of any sort. So, you know, any kind of rougher surface is going to work better when you're gluing things together, okay? So that's just a fact. So why not? You know, I get if you're making hundreds of pens a day or something like that, I don't know that I would waste the 5 seconds, because how much benefit you're getting is probably not that much, to be honest. However, I like stacking cards in my favor whenever I can. So I do usually scuff tubes if it's just a brass tube. Now, what I think is more important though than scuffing is I use denatured alcohol, and I put gloves on before I do any of this stuff when I'm handling it, when I get ready to glue, just to make sure that there's nothing weird on my hands like oils or a really good example is if I went and sprayed a mold with mold release, you know, usually, so, you know, the stoner stuff, usually I just hold the mold and I spray it, right? And I get stuff all over my fingers. It's not going to hurt me, I don't think, but that's how I do it. And if I went and then immediately started handling the tube, if I get some of that stuff on there, it's not, you're going to have an area where the glue's not going to stick, basically. So that's why I put gloves on, and then I wipe it off with denatured alcohol just to make sure there's no oils or any other stuff on the surface before I glue it. Then I have one of these little tools. I find it pretty handy. You could just make one out of wood. I literally have one for like the bigger junior tubes that I just turned on the lathe. But I have this tool, so I mount it. It holds it there. And then, like I said, I grab the Starbond Thick. Turner's Warehouse carries this. And then I put it on here. And I'm not shy about it. I get it all over the place. And like I said, I don't know if this is a huge deal or not, but I like to rub it in. I use just a little popsicle stick, and I just get it on every inch. I'm pretty anal about things. You guys know that. But I've definitely done everything in my power to get glue on every surface. All right, so then the super fast, or I'm sorry, the gap filling thick isn't going to set up on me right away. If you're in a really humid environment, I don't know how much time you've got, but it's definitely longer than the thin. Now this, I know there's no label. I bought a gigantic bottle and I just refill these things. This is the super fast thin from, dang, I don't even have a, so the problem is the labels fall off. So it's super fast thin. Turner's Warehouse has this too. This you should have on hand. I don't care if you're going to do the tubes, you know, glue tubes in with CA glue or not. This stuff is a miracle cure. So then here's my blank, and I've got a nice long tip on this, and I waste, and I get it all over the place, and I just douse it in the inside, pick up my tube. I know that I'm kind of a little bit off camera here. The other reason I wear gloves is so that I don't stick my fingers together, which, funny story, guys. I got a funny story to tell you. She's not going to like it. And then I just wipe off the excess and then set it aside. Now, I pretty much glued it to my finger. I'm going to go set this aside over here real quick because then I wipe off. I always get extra on this thing, and I don't want that stuff stuck there or else tubes won't go on. And that's it. I'm done. All right. Actually, I want to wipe off I always get the cap stuck on this thing. So there we go. So that's it. Just like I said, super fast thin on the inside of the blank itself, the gap filling thick on the on the tube, rubbed in, and that's it. But like I said, I really do think the big thing is, if you're going to do anything, I don't know that you really have to, you know, sand the tube. But I really do recommend that you do the alcohol and wipe off the tube. And I would say especially on the if you're just doing a painted tube where you didn't scuff it, definitely do the alcohol thing, because it will increase the bond if there was something, you know, on there. All right, so I gotta stop and, so funny story, guys. Speaking of gluing your fingers together, Gretchen had to do something for her stuff. She was mounting these little things on frames for pictures, and she had to open a glue, you know, like the really terrible, just super glue bottle things. And she poked it and it just blew up on her hands, and she didn't think about it, but it totally glued the entire tube. And I mean, just a blob of glue. Oh man. And we didn't have acetone at home, so we got to come to the shop to get it off. She's freaking out. It was, oh man, I felt really bad. But so I told her, I'm like, if you don't want this to happen in the future, just put some gloves on if you're doing CA glue, and you won't glue your fingers or the tube of the glue to your hand. So she probably doesn't want me telling you guys, but how dare you scuff? Yeah, like I said, I really don't think that it matters that much, but with the scuffing, like I said, because I have experience with not doing it on the painted ones, and it works just fine. However, in the back of my mind, if sanding scratches into it isn't going to affect anything, because you know you don't want to sand a painted tube, I don't know, why not? Not going to hurt anything. That's the one thing. It's definitely not going to make the bond worse, for sure. So, yeah, hopefully it'll help. I don't know. And like I said, my way is not. All I know is ever since I switched from using just normal epoxy for the, you know, it was just 5-minute epoxy. Ever since I switched, I honestly can't remember one time where I blew a blank up when I was turning it. And it happened before that. You know, usually, now if I get like a weird catch, I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. But I mean, I was getting it to where I was just turning and I was getting down to, you know, and it never happens right away where you're like, well, that's over. You're done almost, and you're taking this, it's that oh, just one more cut to get everything, you know, whatever at the by the bushings. But what I was finding is it would catch, and I wasn't doing anything funky with the tool. Like I didn't do something to make it catch. I was just turning. It was a normal pass, and it would just blow up in my face. And what I realized was happening was there was no glue where that, because I found parts and I'm inspecting, and there's like literally no glue anywhere. Where it blew up, which means it can move, right? And so if you're jamming a sharp object into it and it's spinning, and that thing's not secured to the tube, it can kind of, the tool edge can kind of dig into it, and it can, you know, especially with like a plastic, it's going to flex and it's going to reach a point where it just breaks. If that tool digs in any amount, and it's regardless of your technique or whatever, like if it's not secured, you're gonna get a blowout. That's just how it's gonna happen. And so that's why I'm like, well, let me see if I can figure out some new way to get things to work. And I don't know if my way is better. I definitely know that I'm not getting perfect coverage, because if I just glued in a clear tube, you can still see splotches, right? And it's kind of weird. You're not getting 100% perfect coverage no matter what you do. But for some reason, that way seems to work better for me. So if you're having issues with that, maybe try this out, see how it works. I also think that a lot of people like glue the tubes in and then just go and turn it within minutes, and the glue hasn't really strengthened that much. So anything that I can share or things that you can try that are different to save you from just wasting a blank, you know, because that's the worst when you blow a blank up, and it always happens at the end. You're like done. So yeah, I get I don't know. I used to do the wax in tubes and all that. I just don't care. I just scrape it out. There were so many extra issues. One of the problems that I have because I used to use that dental wax and I would push it down in, but the problem is if you do that, you're putting wax on the outside of the tube. Glue is not going to stick to that either, and you definitely want to have glue on the ends. So I don't know. I just don't think that, personally, I don't think that a little bit of glue in the tube is really that big of a deal. Like, and I showed you last week what I do, and I do this basically on every single blank. Do I have a, yeah, here's, I've got a little scrapey tool. Stole it from my dad. It's not particularly sharp right now. I have a really tough time sharpening this stupid thing, but if you can get some sort of a scraper like this, and frankly, you could just grab like whatever, and you could make something similar to this. And I just go in there and I just scrape it. And it generally comes off pretty well. I don't know. A lot of times after I've sanded it square, there's kind of like a little bit of a burr. And so I just go in there and kind of clean everything up, get any junk out of the inside. I don't find that the barrel trimmer things, because they have like a thing that's supposed to like kind of scrape the insides. The tolerance isn't close enough to actually get just a thin blob of CA glue out. So that's why I just scrape the heck out of these things, and they generally work pretty good. If you do use wax, that's definitely, I would do the alcohol step after you put the wax on. Yeah, I have those sheets, and I used to do that too, and I just, I gave up on it. I didn't find that it was really saving me that much time, personally. I'm not poo-pooing it for someone else. If it works good, then do whatever works for you. That's the name of the game with any of this stuff. But I used to, and I just said, I don't want to take that step. But I will scuff a tube. All right, now I don't have like a TBC style bushing. Am I on the right camera? Yes, okay. So I've got the regulars, and then I've got the amazing TBC bushings adapters. These things are lifesavers. If you've got a whole bunch of mandrel bushings, but you kind of want to switch over to the, no, that's not far enough. You want to switch over to between center turning for pens, man, get yourself a set of these adapters and you'll be set. Okay, so how's the camera? Let's get the camera going in here, get this nice and set up. Let me find, what was that? Yes. I'm gonna open up the YouTube app real quick here. Why doesn't it show me? Go to my channel. There we go. Probably turn the volume down so I don't listen to myself. Okay, did I miss anything? Actually, we were talking about the dental wax. The other problem that I have with the dental wax is I typically use this thing and put the tube on there. And for shorter tubes, in some cases, like the dental wax, I can't do that. I think that's actually why I finally just kind of quit, especially for the juniors. The cap part is too short. So it wouldn't work if I was using the dental wax on that. So that was another reason. And I think around that same time, I found that little scraping tool thing. And I'm like, this is fine. A lot of times I actually don't get any glue in there. It depends on how messy I am. So if I'm lucky, no glue actually really gets in there. One other thing, actually, if you want to be able to get it out easier, if you don't want to use wax and you want to just scrape it, if you wait for, I guess it depends on what you're using, but with the CA glue, if you wait like 30 minutes and then come back and just scrape it out, it'll come off a lot easier like 30 minutes after you did it, applied it, versus like the next day or a week, because again, the bond is going to set in more the longer you kind of wait. Eventually it's going to stop getting stronger. But, you know, like overnight, it's going to be harder to get the glue out of the tube versus like, you know, 30 minutes. But you want to wait long enough to where you're not like messing around with the bond to the tube either, so I don't know. All right, so let's turn the pen. Did I have anything else that I needed to? No, I got all the stuff out of the way. All right, let's turn this sucker. Well, I know one thing I was going to do. I got a link to the knurl pen kit at Turner's Warehouse if you want that. If you want to snag one of these suckers, drop a link real quick here. I think I'll pin that too, just in case. Oh, Jim got the blue and green. Nice. So I think you probably missed it, but at the beginning we talked about the percentages. You don't do the kit pens, so you don't have to worry about tubes. But if you ever do, you know, do a blank where it's just a brass tube underneath, I would recommend going 2% for pretty much all the like minimum to make sure you cover the tubes up. It's also going to give you the most like saturation. And especially with the Army green and the navy blue, those two are a little bit on the kind of, I mean, they're not transparent, but they're more transparent than the other three. All right, so real quick, I want to kind of stop and just see where we're at, how it's looking right now. You guys saw the outside of the blank, but I'm going to turn down the light a little bit. Should help. Wow. That's looking good. Look at those colors. That was just a great combination of colors. I like that. And that turquoise or teal, I think teal. I mean, that was one that I can see why everybody likes that so much. It's a really good color. That's the P-Town Subby one. I hear through the grapevine that's a popular one. All right, so let me scroll down. Let's see if I'm. No, knurl is one of your favorites. Nice. I don't know, I maybe turned one. It's been a long time. think that's looking pretty good right there. Oh, good, they arrived. Yeah, that's another question I have. Are they arriving safely? Like I said, we really tried to head off any leaks with the seals. So the internal seal under the cap should keep it good, like regardless of anything. But, you know, if for some reason the seal didn't bond as well or whatever, the other thing that I do is I wrap it in a plastic baggie thing. So even if the seal fails, it may be kind of messy in there, but it shouldn't wreck the entire package, basically. It's kind of the idea. Now the question is, I shipped an entire, like, gigantic many boxes to Turner's Warehouse. So I'm hoping that those ones made it pretty good. We once again, I tried to do my best to keep it safe, but you never know. Saw a couple little areas that I wanted to kind of clean up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna quit fiddling with it. Turn the noisy dust collector off. That's nice. Oh, Darren's arrived safely. Nice. Sweet. You think you maxed out your wish list on the Turner's Warehouse website? Oh man. Harold's here, what's up? Oh, Brian got a Tormach. Tormach? Is that how you say it? I don't know how you say it. A lathe. Yeah, the one area where it may not be like 100% perfect is the label may be slightly crooked on the bottle. It's worse like the 2-ounce bottles, you can't really notice. It's kind of hard because the 1 ounce, the label takes up the whole thing. So like it's really close to the top and bottom. So if it's off a little bit, it's pretty pronounced. But that was the one area where I'm like, I'm not buying a machine to put labels on. I don't know. I don't believe that it's going to be infallible. Because the bottles can kind of squish. They're plastic. Like if I was doing this on like glass bottles, then fine. I don't know. I was like, that's one area where I'm not spending money. And frankly, you can put them on by hand pretty fast. A machine might save some time, but maybe it would be a little bit more straight. But I don't think it'd be perfect on the 1 ounce bottles, especially. Okay, so let's do a little sanding. I'm going to hit this with 600 first. But yeah, but I was like on a mission to figure out the seals. Because it just makes me angry when I get a bottle of pigment, liquid pigment, and it's blown up. And it's just a mess in there. And like I said, I can't guarantee that every single one is not going to be like that. But, you know, like everyone's going to come perfect. But it really should not be many of them. Every once in a while something might go sideways, but I'm hoping that the seal method that I'm employing keeps them nice and clean, so you're not like, oh, great, now I get to clean up a mess before I even started. The other problem is, I mean, you send it and if the thing blows up, then you just wasted a bunch of pigment. It's just, nothing aggravates me more than that. Here's the refund. It's off by 0.003. A couple of them are kind of sideways, and I was like, I don't really want to redo that. Most of them are pretty good. I'm getting, you know, and the more that I do, the better I am at doing them manually, figuring out systems and stuff, but every once in a while, one gets a little sideways and I'm like, well, that's a special one. You win a prize. No, let's see, Jim said in the comics section, yeah. I reuse, we don't get the newspaper, but my parents and my mother-in-law do, so we recycle. I actually find it kind of fun when I'm packing them and I get a comics section. I think it's kind of fun. If I got one sent to me, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna read some comics. It's better than the local Gardnerville news. Usually not much is going on. So this is silicon carbide paper. You know, and we've kind of talked about this. I find that this stuff, the silicon carbide, which is, you know, the wet dry black stuff, it just seems to do a really good job of taking material off. It's pretty aggressive. So you can get it nice and flat. It's not super aggressive. It's not gonna, like, you know, I wouldn't recommend sanding, you know, bumps and stuff out, especially with like 600 grit, but it does a really good job getting tool marks out and smoothing everything out, and it's pretty aggressive. And I think the reason is, compared to the, like, I really wouldn't want to start with just the Zona. And I think one of the things is the papers, you know, like harder, more rigid. And I also think that the type of abrasive, the silicon carbide, is a little different than the Zona paper. And I think it's more aggressive. So between the harder paper, the silicon carbide particles, that's why I like doing like my smoothing and like that first step with the silicon carbide, but then I switch quickly to the polishing papers because I think they do a better job polishing something. And that's, you know, that's why there's all these different types of sandpapers. It really gets kind of technical when you deep dive into sandpaper technology and all that stuff. But it definitely helps to pick the right sandpaper for the application. You know, like I don't want to be using silicon carbide to sand wood. It's, the other thing about it is there's a lot, it's very densely packed, and it's made to sand things smooth, you know. But with wood, it's going to clog something like this up. So you don't want to, you know, you wouldn't use silicon carbide for that, but for, you know, sanding metal, for automotive stuff, finishes, and I think plastics, it's a really good choice of abrasive for this type of a thing. And then, like I said, the polishing papers, that obviously just makes sense. We're trying to polish, so they're intended for that use. Another reason, you know, like the paper's stiffer on the silicon carbide, and the reason why I think that kind of plays into something, if you're using something that's just super floppy like this, it's just going to go in and out of ridges. It's going to follow the contours, and that's what makes a polishing paper good. It's not going to radically change the shape of anything. It's just going to polish the surface, where that little stiffer paper can kind of help get, you know, get ridges out, actually. It's not going to just completely follow that contour. And I'm talking like really minor contours. It's not so rigid that it's going to make it like dead flat, but if you've got little imperfections, tool marks and things, that harder paper is going to knock them out. Newspaper, I know. I don't know. I don't really keep up with all the news and all that stuff. Build a jig. Yeah, you can kind of do that, but I don't know. The biggest problem is those 1 ounce bottles, because I actually watched videos, of course. I went to YouTube to see what other people thought about this whole bottling thing. And you know, there are things, but I think with the super small bottles, it just, that presents an issue. And I got to be honest, guys, like really down the road, I'm probably going to knock out the 1 ounce bottles eventually. I just, you know, I think most people are going to want to use more pigment anyway. And I think it'll be easier to just have the 2 ounce. But starting out, I wanted to make sure that, you know, if somebody has no clue who I am, what Color Lab pigments are, that they're not like, oh, I got to buy this big 2 ounce thing. You know, try it out, see if you like it. If you like it, come back. Get a 2 ounce. You know, you'll love it. I personally find 2 ounce bottles easier to work with too. I'd much rather personally have those. They're just they I don't know. I like them. I go through a lot of stuff. I add a lot to my projects though. So like a 1 ounce bottle, I'm constantly either buying another one or you know, in my case, I just can refill things. But in fact, most of my pigments are in 4 ounce bottles, which that's something down the road. If somebody needs a big bottle, I will be doing that. One thing that I totally forgot to do was save some of the pigment. I bottled it all up, so I don't have any more. But I actually was going to save some if anybody needed like a 4 ounce. I think that'll be more important if I do come out with the standard colors though. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like I was responding to Darren. Silicon carbide just seems to work better. At that, you know, like the first step. I don't really like going way up high with silicon carbide. I actually find that the paper being stiffer, I don't like it actually. I like these things the Zona papers to be able to just follow the surface, and I don't know, it's kind of a feel thing. They just feel like they're doing a better job in my head. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's going to know what a newspaper is in 10 years. That's true. I mean, I don't know. Some people I don't know if they do today. Depends on if we have a gigantic solar flare event in the next 10 years. That could radically change things too. Still want the burgundy, huh? So I think what I'm going to do, here's my dilemma, guys. For me to come out with an entire line, it's going to cost a fortune up front. And if there's not enough demand for it, it could wipe me out basically. So I don't know. I'm still on the fence. I think for a little while, you know, as things, more and more people kind of find out about it, and start, you know, using the pigment, I think what I'm going to do is probably come out with like a color. We'll do like a special color. I'll get, you know, a gallon or whatever of it, bottle that, and we'll see how it goes kind of thing. I think that's what I'm going to do for the next step. And that way I can get a couple more colors out to you guys. So burgundy would be in that category for sure. Probably be one of the first. Because I did have, you know, a few of those colors that I'm like, do I want this for the first round or not? So I think it makes sense to do that. And I was thinking it'd be kind of fun to do like just special colors, like, you know, maybe figure out a way for people to vote and be like, oh, I want to see this color. So for a while, that's more manageable for me in my pocketbook. To just kind of come out with some colors, find one that people want, and then, you know, do a run, see how it goes kind of thing. Slowly expand kind of thing for now. I haven't even, with my mom going in the hospital last week, I've been playing catch up in the shop. So I haven't even posted anything about the pigments yet on Instagram or anywhere. So that's the next step, is to market. Because if I don't market it, nobody's going to buy anything. So that's fun. We're going to work on marketing first. That'll be the first step before we even expand. And I'm very excited about the pigment stuff. It's pretty fun. All right, so I went up to blue. I've been going to blue lately. I don't know. Gray, blue, one of the two. It doesn't really matter which one. there's really no harm in going higher than you need to go, but if you don't go high enough, then you didn't do a good enough job. And the next step isn't going to get the scratches out. All right, so I did try, we were talking about it, because I bought these originally. I was going to go with these types of flip top caps for the pigments. But, and you can see what ends up happening with the pit. Well, actually, let me go grab an example. I might have thrown them all away. I'm so mad. Yeah, here. At first, it seemed like they were nice and clean, and what I like about them is you would never pick a bottle up and start shaking it with this open, I don't think. My inclination is to actually put your finger on top of the bottle. But what I found is it leaks all everywhere. And I'm like, oh, well, this is just terrible. This is way worse than... So, and I took a kind of a leap of faith and bought 3,000 of them because there was a good deal, and I was like, but it was preemptive. So I did try to put these on here, but they don't actually fit. I don't know if you can see, but they don't actually, it's not the right size. And I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence with these. They work okay, but I'm not totally sold that they're a whole lot better than the twist tops that come on the Magic, I was going to say Magic Spoon. Anybody eat Magic Spoon cereal? Magic Juice. I don't know. It works all right. I think the biggest problem that I have is I end up squeezing more out than I need with these. That's kind of one of the drawbacks. So I don't know. Because I was going to maybe just try and offload, sell those if they worked really well for these and be like, oh, here's the 6-pack, for like not much, and just try and recoup some of my cost on buying 3,000 caps that I don't need, if anybody wanted them. But I don't think I'm going to do that because they're not really working that great. I mean, they're okay. I don't know. Once you kind of get used to how much squeezing to do and all that, but I just don't know if it really is worth switching out. Okay, so I go up to about 1750 RPMs. I don't know. Somewhere between 1500 and 2000 seems to work pretty good for me. And this stuff is just... He came out, he did the right naming on this stuff. It is Magic Juice. This stuff is great. Jim's going to try blue with blue mica and light blue. That's pretty sweet. Purple has been tough to get for me. That is one, like a really vibrant purple. I don't know if it's super possible. They tend to be darker with this stuff. And I've had multiple conversations with my supplier, and I don't know what the deal is, but I haven't seen a whole lot of vibrant purple liquid dyes for resins. And I don't know what the problem is. I think it has to do with the base pigment. I can get a pretty decent one, but it is a little bit darker than what I would kind of want personally, but we'll have to kind of see what I can mix up. I will say if you put more on it, if I'm using this was more than I would have normally squeezed out, but it does, I don't know, I kind of almost like it. I might have been not using enough. I don't know how much you're really supposed to use necessarily. Kind of like a dime amount, I think, is what, I don't know. Do the instructions say? Let's see, I have the instructions here somewhere, I think. Used to. Well, they're hidden somewhere, I think. I lost the instructions. I'm not sure if they say how much to use or what. Ah, you like the pink camo, huh? Yeah, a lot of people have been asking for that, actually. And I was like, when I did the first camo one, I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could do the pink and the blue. Like, there's so many really cool camo mixtures. My only problem is with some of the mixtures, I'm just not sure. Like, they may look good, but I don't know if they'll really come through. That was the problem that I had in the past with camo blanks. They just, the colors weren't so perfect that it screamed camo, and it was just kind of a swirly mix of those colors, and they were fine. But when I did that, the vertical ones though, I think those colors were just so perfect that I was like, wow, that is by far, I'm happy with that, because I wasn't happy with anything in the past that and part of it I think also has to do with, I was always trying to pour them in a horizontal mold, and they just didn't, I don't know. I was like, I'm not selling this. Wasn't happy with it, but I like the vertical ones. The pink, I think also, the colors are pretty dead on for that type of camo. So I don't know, we'll have to see it. I really like the blue camo. I think that would be kind of cool, like maybe like kind of maybe even like kind of an Arctic blue, which I think in that case, even if it wasn't super camo-ish looking, because it's hard to pour a liquid and get like those, the blobby camo look. Because, I mean, it's impossible. You really can't pour something and get that exact look. You can just do the best you can. But even if it didn't look camo, I think that would be probably a pretty cool color combination either way. So the big pink erasers. All right, so how many? I don't even know what step I'm on. I think we may be doing step 4 twice. I lost my. What I like to do is I like to rip up 6 of these things, and that way if I get lost, I'm like, I count the little blue paper towels that are left. But I just had a big stack of them. So this might be double Ford. That's okay. Double 4 isn't going to hurt anything. Now we're on to 5. I know that for sure. I can't wait to see how this thing looks fully polished. For anybody that was watching Saturday morning cartoons today, if you saw the last pour, the big gigantic one, I missed, was that Galactic Ghost Green that he used for the like mica sparkle stuff? I didn't catch what he actually put in there. Just kind of doing in and out of the room and stuff. So let me know if you know what that was, because that was some pretty awesome looking stuff. Oh, pencil eraser. I see. Eraser size. Huh. Yeah, the Novus seems to work pretty good. I've had some of that in the past. I mean, there's definitely alternatives to this stuff, but I don't know. So far, like I said, I've been getting pretty good results with it, so. And I've gone back to one thing that over the years, I've been turning pens for like 15 years. And some things did not seem to work for me. Like, I didn't get very good results with certain types of ways of doing things in the beginning. All right, and I think one of the problems, especially when we're talking like polishing, and I think one of the problems was my sanding regimen wasn't very good, or discipline maybe is what what the reality is of that. And so I'm better at sanding now, and so there's a few things where I've been like, oh, let me go back and see, how does this work now? And I actually went back and I tried the Plastex method, and yes, it does make it glossy. I wasn't super impressed with that one. And it kind of gave it a weird feeling, and I don't know. So like I have actually gone back and tried different things here and there. I don't know that the problem is my Novus is so old that I don't think I'd trust it anyway. That's one of the other problems, is if it's like 15 years old, if I try it and it doesn't work, I don't know. I mean, maybe the product is not good anymore for some reason. So I'd have to like buy another one and do all that. But I do. Oh, I almost dropped it. I don't want to do that. I do try to kind of go back and see how things compare. So far, really haven't found anything that I like better. The other problem is eventually you kind of get used to a certain way of doing things, a product, and you're like, man. It's hard to argue. I mean, that's the thing, is it's hard to argue with those kind of results. You know what I mean? Like, I could try some other polish, but whatever. This stuff works great. Man, those colors are looking good, and I'm really happy with the pour. I mean, this looks like, what do you call those? Like the rock things? What do you call those? Wow. It reminds me of those. I mean, people do like the coasters. What do they call those things? Like a geode kind of. Man, the colors though are like really mixed. I don't remember, like, I gotta look at my notes again, because for some reason the pour and stir, or like whatever method I use, I can't remember now offhand. Really happy with that pour. Sometimes timing, temperature, timing, all these things factor in, and so it's kind of hard to say, well, oh, I poured it better this time, or whatever. But man, I really like how it looks. All right, so we're back here. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to get these guys out of the way. So for anybody that didn't catch the beginning, I did go back and and here's a 1% with the navy, and you can see, this was 0.5. You can see it's lighter. This is a little bit darker. Definitely still not there. I mean, you can see through that thing. And then this is 2% with the navy blue, and I think that looks good. I do want to do a 3% with the navy and the army eventually, just to kind of look and see. But, looking at this, I think 2% is plenty. There's no tube, there's no weirdness going on in there. So I think 2% is enough. But I want to double check and just see if anything changes if you put like 3% in with the Navy and Army. And we just glued the Army one in, so I don't know what 1%. It's not going to look better than 2%, that's for sure. But I did do, let's see, at this point I'm not sure which one's which. Actually, this one's the 1%. I mean, there's barely any difference, right? Like, it doesn't really look that much different. But if I really get up and inspect this, it's kind of see-through-ish still. Like if I hold it away from my face, you really can't notice, but I can definitely see through, and it's basically what I'm seeing is like the glue splotches, because it's kind of it's weird. It doesn't look like it's totally solid, and it almost looks like the pigment's not mixed up right, but that's not the case. So what it is there's just enough light transference where you can kind of see, like, what it is there's like different shades, very minute. But with the 1%, even with the robin egg, which would be the most opaque out of all the ones that I've released so far, there's still some, I would go with 2% with all of these things. This is the 1%, this is 0.5. Again, I can definitely see through and see some like splotchiness going on, but even with this one, I can kind of see some areas where it's kind of splotchy looking. So 2% should fix that. Same story, 0.5. Not a whole lot of difference in like how saturated the color, like the color is the color on all three of these. There's not like a significantly lighter version of these things, I don't think, but 2% I think is going to give you the best results. So that's what I would recommend for all the pigments if you're doing tubes. Guaranteed good results. Now you can really play with that though if you're doing like kitless. Another factor is that was one color, one shade. When you start putting a bunch of things together, because I haven't put 2% in all the blanks that we've made, and you don't necessarily need it in a lot of cases. But to be safe, 2% is going to give you non-splotchy looking stuff, and the good results for sure. No questions. Well, the only way that it could not give you good results is if you really turned it down super thin. The thinner it's going to end up being, the more pigment you're going to kind of need to add in there to make everything good to go. All right, so you guys can see, let's zoom in a little bit more, huh? How about that? How about that? That's even better. This thing kind of straighter. Boom. Okay. Now, I haven't done one of these, so I need to look at the instructions a little bit. Because the back end of this thing has a few parts that I'm not 100. I mean, I'm guessing. I would imagine that you need to press this into this, and then this goes like into here. But I'm not 100% sure, so I'm just gonna read the instructions and see what they tell me to do. Does it say kit features preparing assembly? Layout parts. Press the tip coupler. Okay, you did that. Press the clip assembly into the opposite end. Okay, so I guess we just press this in. Man, I don't know which side. Where do I even put it? I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I think I kind of like it like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really think there's a wrong answer on this one. Somewhere in that neighborhood should work. Okay, so press that in. Let's see here. Oh, almost. Oh, shoot. The spring bounced onto the ground under the toolbox. Wow. I found it. Okay. I was doing some maintenance on my tailstock and I totally lost one of the screws for a long time. Wasn't that important, but it would have held together without it. But I was like, man, I don't really want to have to contact Laguna for a tiny screw. Okay. Let's see here. Where are we at here? Screw the tip into the tip coupler. Remove the tip protector. Insert this and screw in the mechanism. Press the twist cap over the, okay. All right, so next step is we're gonna screw this guy on, they say. Ooh, look at that, that looks nice. I like that. Then they tell us to put the ink in. Tip protector. There's some dust on the spring there. That's not helpful. Okay, and then you put that guy in, I guess. Why would you? Okay. And then they say to insert this thing and screw it in. Okay, that's great. And then just press this thing. I still haven't put the thing on. Oh man, you guys are like, do you do anything when you're off camera? I gotta find a felt thing. Oh man. Still haven't done it. Okay. I don't know if I even needed the press for this. Whatever. Okay. So we got it. Got a fuzz on it. Man, that looks pretty good. And then you just twist this. So let's see. Let's get off down here. Woo, look at that. It's not a click. I think the click ones, I don't know. I remember the click. Oh, that's not. That didn't work. There we go. Just had to get it going. I think the click one, because I think there was a click version of this, and I don't think that one was very good. But I like this twisty one. This one's great. And I like this knurl. That feels pretty good to hold. Uh-oh, what do I got all over me? Got something on me. There. Whatever that was. It's off now. Anyway, let me zoom out a little bit here. Yeah, the knurl feels really nice in the hand. I like that. I mean, I know I have gloves on, but... And this part also, it's easy grippy with the knurling action. But man, this blank, guys, everybody loves a little sparkle. I'm trying to get it to where there's no... It's so shiny, I can't get rid of the reflection. I'm sorry. Thanks, magic. I keep wanting to say spoon. Magic juice. Wow. So did anybody answer the geode? Is it geode? Yeah, geode. Looks like a geode to me. I don't know. Especially like in certain areas, it really... I don't know. It's pretty cool looking. I like that. So let's see here. There was a question, David. You're finishing up a cutting board that I have some places to fill with resin. Do you offhand know of a good resin that's food safe? Okay, so food safe is that one's, I mean, if you want to talk about triggers and opinions, food safe and resin that's a tough one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my thoughts about it. I'm going to give you what I know about it, and then I'm going to let you make a decision. Okay, so if you're going to be cutting on this thing, if you're going to be putting food on it and doing stuff, if you got like, especially like juicy foods and things like that, I don't recommend using resin. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so if you actually read the food safe FDA thing, the like regulation, it's for like incidental food contact is what food safe means, which means like you could put a cracker on it and it's fine. Now, so I generally don't coat things that are going to be food used with any kind of resin. My biggest problem with it is if the resin has fully cured, it's inert. It's not going to be health damaging in any way. Cutting boards, you're going to be cutting little bits of plastic, and I know that we ingest plastic every single day at this point, so I'm not sure how big of a health risk that actually is. My biggest problem is like I don't really think that those are terrible things that are gonna really kill you. What I don't like is there's no way of 100% knowing that every single part of the resin has fully cured. If you didn't mix it in well enough, There could be uncured part A or part B in that stuff, and if you're sticking juicy meat on there and cutting it up and it's sucking in that resin, I'm not comfortable personally with that thought. So I'm just going to say that for now. Having said that, if you want to go through with, like I said, it's up to you. I'm not saying that you need to do this or not. I'm uncomfortable with it personally. I don't have any. But one of the food safe, has one of the food safety things on it. Amazing clear cast. I got to look something up real quick. So Amazing Clear Cast has it. What I want to know is, does Plus have it? Yeah, FDA compliance, whatever that means. Yeah, so Amazing Clearcast and Clearcast Plus both have an FDA thing. I highly recommend that you go in and try and find the FDA. I don't know where exactly I found this stuff, but after reading what those actual regulations say, I was much more hesitant to be like, oh yeah, let me just put this in a mug and drink liquid out of it or something like that. So do your research on that and make your decision on it. And it kind of depends on what you're doing, because if it's going to be just kind of like a mostly visual thing and you're not going to be really cutting on it, or you can maybe do it on the backside, that's one method of employing, making it look pretty on the bottom so it can just sit there and be pretty, and then flipping it over and just being wood on the top. That might be a way to deal with some of this stuff if you're not comfortable with it. But yeah, so Amazing Clearcast Plus and their regular one is a good one. You might look in, is Chad still here? Liquid Diamonds might be. I'm not sure. Man, I don't know. I don't know of, I just wrote off that whole FDA thing because I don't know how much difference there really is between any of these things. I think the thing is, if it has the FDA thing, they just tested it. Somebody paid for testing. I don't see what the difference, I don't think there's any difference in what's the ingredients in one that's got FDA and one that doesn't. I don't know. I'm just saying, I just don't know what the difference is between some of these things, but keep that in mind. I like to warn people about that. It's up to you to decide how much you care about that. Let's see here. So Osmo, yeah. Yeah, that's an easy one. There's lots of food safe finishes out there. And I mean, because even back in the day when I was doing really woodworking is what I started doing many years ago. There was always this big, debate about, cutting boards and food safe finishes and all that stuff. And frankly, you can put polyurethane on there as long as it's fully cured, it's inert, it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as it's fully cured. My biggest problem is when you're mixing two parts together, it's not even a matter of time, if you let a cutting board that's got polyurethane, on it sit for a month, I mean, there's almost no question that it's fully cured, and at that point it's fine. But with resin, it's hard because you're mixing these two parts, and although there's not much chance that there's some just blob of part A sitting there, I don't know. I mean, you never know. So just, keep some of that stuff in mind. I personally would rather just not mess with it, especially if you're selling stuff. That's where I get really kind of, I don't, realistically, I don't know that I'd care that much if I made a cutting board and I had some resin on it and I cut on it. Definitely less of a thing personally, I think. I don't think that I would really be that worried about it. But if I'm giving it as a gift and I don't 100% know that this stuff is not harmful in some way, or if I'm selling something, then I'm like, it's just not worth it for me. So that's the way that I handle that stuff. But make sure to, and if you have any questions about any of that stuff, call, Illumilite if you're going to use one of their resins or whatever resin company it is. Call them and talk to them about it. They'll give you as much information as they can, and probably be able to point you to the actual regulations, which honestly, that might actually be in their, do I have an amazing Clearcast? If it is an FDA thing, that might be where I saw it. In the instructions that they give you, it might at least tell you what regulation it is for sure. So you can go and look it up online or whatever. But I definitely recommend looking into it so you can make a good, informed decision. It is kind of a bummer though, because, I wish there was something that was like, you could just eat it and nobody cares, but that's not really what the FDA regulations say. And there's actually two different ones. One seems better than the other, sort of, but they really don't say much different. I don't know. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about this pen though. So definitely recommend. I really like the green. I'm actually not a huge fan a lot of times of the interference green. On its own, it's kind of meh. But when you put it next to really stunning colors, and especially like contrasting colors, I really like it. It really pokes out at you and looks good. I like the interference colors, the way that it almost like it has like an aura. It's not just like pearly. It's like got this weird kind of aura look about it, or aurora. Either way, pretty cool. So big thank you to everybody who super chatted and picked some amazing colors. Man, I'm really blown away. That's a really good looking blank. So all the Pen Blank Club folks, you're going to be getting one of those guys. I got to make more of those, obviously. I will continue to do, I'm going to do a couple other, I'm probably going to pour some 3% blanks across the board, do some tests, and just compare, see if there's any difference between 2 and 3%. I don't really expect there to be. Of course, we got the Pigment sale is going on right now. Let me go grab a link that's got the, I think I probably have it in the description already. Maybe, but I'm going to go grab a link that's got the discount. It should apply it if you use this link. If it doesn't apply it, and double check and make sure that when you're checking out that it's applied the discount. It's 20% off on the 5 new Color Lab pigments. Let me get a link, get a shareable link. There we go. And so this will take you to the, you can look at all 5 of them. But this should initialized, like the code's been put in there basically when you check out. Now, if it hasn't for some reason, if you don't see any discount, it should be 20% off on all 5 of those. Just enter Color Lab. So I'm going to type that out here, just so you know, Color Lab. Type that in. There's a little space when you check out. If for some reason that link didn't, it should automatically apply that discount to your order. So 20% off, we got 5 pigments. It should be pretty cool. So I'm not sure what we're doing next week, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty fun. Let's see here. Is there any other questions or concerns? I don't think so. I just want to scroll up real quick because I was kind of paying attention to my assembly. So once again, big shout out to Jake Thompson for hitting 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. And so I'm going to drop one more link in the chat here again. Boom. If you haven't subscribed to his channel, go check it out because they do the Saturday morning cartoons live. That's I don't know when they start that, what time it is, but it's like, I want to say it's like 8 a.m. Pacific time, something like that. That's fun. They have a really great community there. They do all kinds of stuff. Jake does great videos too on resin casting. So he's kind of, and he does, bigger projects, pens, whatever, handles, all kinds of different types of blanks. He shows you how to make molds if you want to get into that, and a whole slew of other stuff. So if you're not familiar with his channel, which you should be, make sure to go check out his channel and get him over to 100,000. He should be well over 100,000 by now. He does such good work, and everybody else that's on the team there. So anyway, guys, thanks again for joining the fun today. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I'll see you guys on the next